Osojnik, welcome.
So today lecture is about body and space, the significance of contact and focus, understanding space and relationships in space in theory and practice. So I started as a little intro a few years ago. I joined this exciting world of street art theater, coming from classical ballet, contemporary dance, movement research, contact improvisation, and dance choreography background. Even though I have many roles like being a performer, dancer, or a choreographer, I always identified myself mainly with being an educator, developing the knowledge in cooperation with my students and other teachers. After first teaching only dancers for a long period of time, and later starting to teach street artists, I discovered a lot of similarities and also differences between us. The biggest difference being the location of performance, the stage inside the theater versus the public space usually. But I realized that all my students need to learn and think about kind of the same factors. So I usually divide my classes into 3 categories. Now the main points, it's nice that you kind of write them down for you as we go, because later we go into practice and I'm going to have some questions for you to deliver with the answers. So, 3 categories. First one addresses the individual and its body. We go into researching his or her movement vocabulary, body repertoire, capacities of the body habits, levels of moving, different qualities of movement dynamics, the size scale of movement from small detailed ones to big motion, the use of gestures, the use of mimics, the use of focus, both tunnel and peripheral, eye contact, and so on. So just remember that the first category is actually you. It's just you as an individual. And now even without this written down, it's you watching, it's you touching, it's you and your body moving. Yeah? We also define the difference between energy, power, speed, and dynamics. Because you can be low on speed but high on energy. I like this sentence. One movement can be high in energy when being slow. Participants are usually not aware that when I say to them go stronger, that they actually react to the instruction with speed. This is what we all have as humans. Yeah? So you have to really start to separate these kind of things. Then we talk about their breathing and how to connect it to moving. Breathing not only being the main capacity that you're alive, but also being also a way of communication with your partner and with your audience. So every participant has to first explore and understand how his or her body functions and what kind of choices it provides to them as performers. For me, this part is very important for performers, that instead of having only a couple of movement tricks that they learned in some workshops and after use repetitively in all their works on the street, they themselves have the tools to explore what kind of a body movement language their performance actually needs. I see a lot of smaller performances that for me don't work when it comes to pure physicality, because you kind of know what they wanted to say or achieve, but they were very restricted by lack of knowledge about the body and the movement. Non-verbal communication presents the majority of our communication anyway. Yeah? So this is first category. Second category covers relationships between performers and also to the audience. In order to learn that, I also introduce basic information about the space between them. In this place, I'm using the information from different sources, like the book on non-verbal communication by Alan and Barbara Pease. Human beings, the same as animals, claim their portable air. This is now a new word. How do you read this one?
Circumference.
Circumference. Cool. Okay. Is this kind of a thing? Yeah. Okay. For me, it sounds so cool. It looks very good. Which accompanies them everywhere they go. The size of it, depending on the density of population where the individual grew up. The distances in our personal space are culturally and historically conditioned and also influenced by social status. Human sees his or her personal space as a limited area that he or she claims as an extension of their bodies. We divide the space around us starting from inside out into 4 areas. Intimate space ranging from 15 to 46 centimeters. Personal space from 46 centimeters to 1.2 meters. Social space from 1.2 meters to 3.6 meters. And public space above 3.6 meters. This is for more Western situation. Japanese have it a bit different, Australia has it a bit different, America definitely has it a bit different. Yeah? We discussed with my students how we can travel through these areas to come closer to the spectators, and how to offer a part of our body or an object as a possible point of contact in the neutral ground in between us. Further on, we explore the possibilities of physical contact as the closest relation and relationship on or from a distance as the most far relationship with the audience. When it comes to physical contact, we travel all the way from soft touch, firm grip, giving and receiving small weight, playing with gravity, falling, lifting, to manipulation of an individual by a bigger group. It's important to understand how a body reacts if we approach audience member from the back where he or she doesn't see us coming, or how from the front where we present less of a threat. We again reopen the importance of focus, both tunnel and peripheral, also dispersed and concentrated focus, the impact depending on length of eye contact, and different expressions in eyes. Later we also define the roles of leaders and followers, the dialogue between them, the exchange of these roles by sign or by rule of changing the role spontaneously when the group is changing the front where they are facing. We explore ways of inviting an audience member with eye contact, with actual physical contact, and possibilities how they would become active members of performance without forcing them. Last thing that we deal in this segment is how to read their bodies and expressions, their readiness to play with us, and their differences. Every character cannot approach every member of the audience with same success, definitely not without changing his or her ways to fit that person. I see a great danger arriving from the fact that we usually train within the group of performers and not with actual members of the audience. That is why we need to be careful that we always try to stay objective and don't react from a habit as a performer. Especially important is the way we touch somebody or come close to somebody. We shouldn't make assumptions based on our reactions, but should be open to expand our vision to predict all sorts of possible scenarios with other people. I many times see performers approaching strangers either way too fast or way too aggressive. Even more dangerous is when an audience member accepts the invitation to play with the performer that later on doesn't take care of their safety while proposing movement ideas together. Then its third category tackles the space. Our inner body space, the space between bodies, the space as our performance space, the characteristics of public spaces, the site-specific performances, the manipulation of space with shifting the space and traveling through space. We try to train ourselves to recognize all space specifics in given or chosen location. That means directions, planes, surfaces, possible exits and entrances, objects in space, subjects in space, the existing traffic in that space, the sound of a space, possible hiding positions, barriers and obstacles in a defined space. We train what an individual can achieve in the street and what a group of performers can do. And every theoretical information is also supported with specific exercises that can be executed on many different levels of complexity. Okay, so this is my lecture. Okay, and now we go like this, and just from now, what you feel in your head and in your body, describe what you heard. It can be very short, it can be very easy.
I'm prepared for your lecture.
What you remember? What's important? What is it about?
Important how to propose somebody in the audience. That we should be careful. That we shouldn't come to him or her aggressive. Yeah, these kind of things. We should feel our body, inner body. Yeah, we should take care of ourselves and take care of the people who are manipulating it.
Super. Cool.
Oh, for me it was a lot of like different topics, so a lot of different details inside. That it's a bit confusing for me right now, but I imagine it a bit more in practical. That how this is actually a relation between you as a person and the public. It's I felt the most of understanding here somewhere. But to know yourself and your actions and how to approach with this to the public. This is what I got out of it. Cool.
Well, I like me being in my body. I like that part. No, I think, I mean, that's what I got. I mean, from this kind of things, well, how I understood that it's important to be in calm with your body and use as much as you can, but it was interesting that you said that you saw a lot of shows that actually had this physicality in it, but not developed. No? And the other thing here that I really was strongly impressed by is this, all these spaces, I mean, which is something I know already, but it never occurred to me before, about the idea that this is not universal. That might be, I mean, okay, in centimeters, but in general it might be, because it also coincides with the notions I had. I mean, what is looking into somebody's eyes, which we experienced when we worked in Britain. I mean, it's not really something you do on the street. It's pretty challenging, and it was a surprise for me. I mean, I'm not saying that this is something. So these kind of things that actually this, for me, the idea that was there, that was for me, is that that also the physicalities are very culturally related, not only person related, but also environment related.
Okay, I think what came from this, I found it very interesting, thank you, is communication. And you used the word communication a lot during your lecture, and it showed how, I think, how important communication is in all these three phases that you were talking about. So the individual knowing yourself, and then communication between performers and the audience, and then also communication with space.
For me, it was these spaces, like one space and then another space, another, and then there's interaction between spaces. And then it depends, where do I come from, where do I exit, where does something else come, where does it exit, and then how do I get towards someone, on what am I open, what is my perception, and how do I approach someone, what way. That was what I was looking at.
Cool.
Yeah, I was thinking more in the ways of observer. How many things observer has to observe, but at the same time it's similar with the mentor. No, the mentor really needs to observe his participants and all. I mean, you said a lot of things. Of course, I couldn't remember all, but it was very interesting. Just with the physicality of the participant, and then to know everything of this inside a public space, how to have in mind so many things and to cope with this, so that also the participant knows it. Yeah.
For us as dancers, it's the most what we are good at, yeah? Because when you start to do ballet, it's like, shit, I cannot do one step without thinking 150 things. And then later, you don't think about none of them, you just do it because you have it in the body.
Yeah.
And for me, what I loved about this system in the end is because, of course, in the beginning participants are overwhelmed by the information of it, but in the end, this categorizing and making it very systematic, we go into this tantra mantra. You, relationship space. You, relationship space. So this one first goes in memory, so they don't forget one of the categories, even when they are choreographing or composing. And then we separate it a little bit. Body awareness, space awareness, contact awareness. Body awareness, space awareness, contact awareness. And then slowly for it just becomes a vocabulary, how we are speaking. Yeah?
Audience has a body. This is, so you can approach it from the back, from the front. There are spaces in between. So, a lot of things that audience doesn't have in indoor theater because they're reduced to eyes and ears and cognition. So this is one. Space has character. You can hide, you can have. There's things that. I mean, many things, but I like these two thoughts.
For me, it was a lot of information, but it's in the one way. In the other way, it was information for how to be present on the street, and I realized, for example, like circle, this is a street, and you inside, this is you, this is your body, and how to be present. It's every mentor says that to be present, you should do a lot of things about yourself because you are on the street. And for me, everything's so clear.
It was so much information that I couldn't be visualize all the things. I really had the feeling, oh fuck, I don't understand English enough. What? I wanted to understand, yeah, we are already here. Oh. It's overwhelming, so maybe it's only my fault, because it's usually also when you are doing something that you have to think of so many things, but it's like driving. When you start to learn, it's like, oh, I have to look back, I have to do this, but then it comes automatically. But here, if you're performing, it can't be only automatically, you always have to be aware, and this is what I now heard you, that yeah, you still have to be present and feel the space, feel the individual space of each person, and so on.
I'm definitely soon doing it in Slovenia, I hope. For me, when it comes to education, because I educate a lot of people also in regular school systems, which are very nice, and all these things. So for me, how I see in 22 years, because the education doesn't function anymore as a systematic approach to knowledge, we are putting less and less stress, and everything becomes very comfortable and very touchy-feely pleasure. Children should enjoy the school and everything. So for me, how I see now, how it in 2 decades changed, is they cannot cope with one information in seconds. And I usually give them 100 of those, because I totally believe that you really have to push yourself in deciding that you can manage a lot. And I think why I love this system with street is because street, at least for me, when I perform there, it wants that from you. Because for me, I don't have a time to reflect. If somebody's falling there, I don't have time to reflect, oh, what's the best contact to use for the lady not to fall, I have to be like, managing all the information. And I kind of like it because we're human beings, we have brain, we have muscles, we can do shit. So not just like doing these things, we can do a lot of things. So I always put my participants through hell, of course, I totally believe in it. That you become phoenix, like, from the ashes.
Yeah, same sort of thing really. Like, I took in that you were saying that to be present within yourself first and know yourself first within practice, that makes it easier to then be present when you're outside. Because if you're not thinking about the way you're portraying your body, it just comes naturally. Then when you're outside, you can be thinking about your space and the way you're looking at someone and stuff. So I think I took that the way you did it in order was purposely, that it was from practice first, and then when you go out, it makes that easier. I like it.
Yeah, and it's also very physically systematical. First, we need to, because usually I start teaching adults, yeah? So some of them are 30 when they start to dance. That's very exciting, you know what I mean? Because they don't know how to stand, they don't know how to walk, they don't know how to sit down, they don't know shit that they is doing. Yeah? So for me it's very important, if you don't know how to carry your weight, you cannot go in contact with her, you cannot approach, for me, a member of audience, because I don't know what's going to actually happen. So I need to train on me, that I can rely on myself, then I can solve whatever happens, you know what I mean? Yeah?
Yeah, the same, like knowing yourself will make knowing what you want your audience to feel like, and like the boundaries you were talking about and how that's making your audience feel. By knowing how that would make you feel, like you know how to develop things from there. And then like knowing the space that you're going to be working in and thinking how they can all like relate together when you're in practice. Cool.
It's very important that here now I remind you something, because we're different. So okay, I know myself, that's why I know you. No, I should know myself, and then I should try all of you within myself to then understand that you're different. Do you know the difference? So I'm an aggressive type of a person and nervous type. So I'm like this. I have a little thing going on from time to time, but usually I'm like this, you know? So for me, I like things fluid, flashy, neat, I love this, you know? I like weird shit, I like aesthetical family. But okay, there's a lady with a purse on the street that apparently wants to watch my piece, you know? So, but I'm saying her body already gives me all the information that she's not aggressive, she's not nervous type, she's more like sensitive, you know, soft. So for me, I need to also understand that, but in order to understand that, I have to research it with me. And this is for me called performance. No matter what you are as a character and a person, you're capable of portraying, like I can do a sensitive bitch like crazy, you know? And I can be a man, but I can be also whatever else. And that's why I understand that. So for me, and it's also a nice experience to fully develop what you truly are, but then also to develop what you are not. For me, it's crucial as a performer.
For me, it was all of your speech, because I was really interested in this. I work very much with physicality. Not being a dancer, I'm a musician, so I get to there through rhythm. And I've done some dance, but as an amateur. And it was really interesting. I mean, many points, like developing your own, like acquiring the tools to develop your own code, let's say, the personal code. Also, of course, this is very impressive that the different spaces, like the intimate, the personal, the public. But the most important for me was exactly what you said, like to develop the skill to adapt to your audience. And this is very difficult to capture and also sometimes to explain. I was telling Ebru before, I had to rehearse with how do you rehearse an interactive performance? How? An interactive public space performance. But I had to do it with two composers I worked with last summer, and I had to kind of capture somehow what happens in the street and kind of make them understand what may or may not happen. So it's always being ready, and that means you know your stuff very well, and that you know which. I use the word modules in music because I had to explain to them that you cannot have a composition, a musical composition, but
any composition, like a dance composition as well, that will be performed from the beginning to the end. This doesn't exist. So you have to have modules. You have to know very well your stuff and switch from one to the other depending on what the audience will do. So it was really interesting, like the way you approached it. You know, you gave me many more things to think about. And I would like to know, will you have access to your text, or
Yeah.
is it possible?
Yeah.
Because it's really.
I mean, I also
really
find
full of
it.
information and
I also find it quite hard this year. I'm actually planning to go more into it because I always try to do the lectures that are understandable but technically correct and the language is professional. So it's not, because the contemporary dance has the same problem as street art for me. It's almost not documented. There is not a lot of literature on it. And actually what we are trying now to do, we tried a couple of years ago in contemporary dance in Berlin, in this IDOD, International Documentation of Contemporary Dance, whatever. Well, there it didn't really work because, but okay, there's a big ego issues all the time. So, and it's very hard because everybody is kind of pretending like they made it up, but not paying references to the people that have already made it, but then it's the same, my knowledge is a synthesis of. So I'm totally for it to do it professionally, but we have to do it really well with chosen vocabulary, but also references to the back, but also pointing to the sources, because in contemporary, I see when I'm teaching with other teachers, we have, for the same movement, because of 50, 60 years of no documentation, we have like 2050 expressions, and it's very confusing for people that we are teaching. So yeah, it's quite hard, and even when I was today writing this, it's like, wow, I hope it doesn't look like just something that I made up, but some of the things I am making up because I don't have an appropriate. So I hope that in English it kind of doesn't completely describe an animal or something, you know.
it's very to the point.
What I wanted to say is for me, because this I had today, but I was already thinking a lot, because my things are, sometimes we go on the street, but usually they are rehearsed in studios, even when I do with street artists. And for me, we should be very, very careful that when we are already quite good as participants, already having the knowledge, everything is clear already, that we still objectify like this, you know, because I see them doing then later with the knowledge, many mistakes, because it's like, yeah, she would just come close now. A regular member of audience wouldn't. And then I see people coming from the back touching the neck. And they are working with me 5 years already. No way, because it's like, I just forget because it's her, and I always touch her. So, I'm always saying, try to imagine a complete stranger. I come from the back, she doesn't see me, maybe she's also not alert really, because people have very bad body awareness these days, you know what I mean? So, even when you're watching a person's body from the back, if it's this kind of a situation, sometimes people jump on these bodies. I mean, hello, yeah, because the body is giving you that it's not prepared for their own weight. And also it's giving you that, you know, this is, wow. You know, this would be a completely different story. So we should be kind of, this is actually for me the hardest part to teach, because how can you pretend that you don't know each other if you know each other? And if you're working together for 10, and I'm now going to pretend that I'm not performer, it's very hard to pretend to be a non-performer. And this goes the same with humor, which is for me killer number one. People just laughing, yeah, because you're funny, you know or not. You should make that joke better, you know what I mean? And sometimes that's why people go on the street or on the stage, it's the same, kind of thinking, wow, I have really good material, but you just got feedback from the people, like it's not really real. Let's see.
I think the key is, sorry, the key is to always be scared.
Yeah. You speak my language, I like to. Yeah. People are scared, it's really cool.
Not scared, it's scared.
Scared and scary. Why not? You have choices. You have to make some damage, yes.
For me, like it kind of came out with relationships, because obviously I've specialised in dance a few years ago, but I never like knew parameters. Like when I went in street arts with John, I never knew that kind of, there's that kind of limit with somebody, and now because you've said that, it's kind of put that in my head that you've got to have this kind of shot off point before you actually end up breaking in some passive space. Not like
But that's why I actually also went into the street art, because for me as a dancer, stage never did it for me. For me, I was, I guess, never narcissistic enough for that situation. I mean, I didn't just enjoy, you know, you watch me and that's it. And for me, I just wanted to finish actually my performative thing, and then the street thing happened, and I remember that even like 20 years of experience of movement, when I did my first solo role in this Madre Courage, I was totally shitting myself, because for a dancer, like I know how to operate the body, the energy, the space, everything, but I was like, and I'm a teacher, so I speak with people all the time, so, but I can just now come to her and just speak with her? For me it was very weird, and it was like, oh. It was a bit like this. But that's why I actually now discovered this for me, because I was always asking myself as a dancer, I mean, I am a teacher, for me that's my definition, but the performer side was also fun. But I always ask myself, but what's wrong with me? Don't I have enough developed ego or something? Yeah? But actually then, after the street experience, it became very clear, I needed to change location. I needed to change audience, because for me also the dancing audience, I'm sorry, it never did it for me.
The music audience, where they just listen
Yeah.
to you and wait until you make a mistake.
Yeah. It's crazy. And especially because we are in a small country, you know, like when I'm performing in this Platala or this Španski Porci, I already know where they will be sitting, because it's 50 of us, you know. And they come and she sits there, and it's this kind of, what I really appreciate about myself is I still love art. So when I go to watch something done by other people, I'm just like, take me, I go for it, take me for a ride. And I see those, I'm sorry motherfuckers, and they're a bit like, and I'm there, you know, all fragile, I'm just gonna deliver my baby, which is my art, and it's like, fuck you, you know what I mean? Can you please go for 1 second with me? And what I actually loved about street is all these people that I reached that wouldn't come to the theater for my show, perhaps, but what I always say to Goro, what I love, because what I hated in stage is this. And I went home on the bus to Kran, why I feel like I've been raped or something, you know, because it was like, I never knew what's good, no, what is it? And what I actually love in the street, if you're not interesting, and if you're not doing something for me, they are like this, what I love about, they don't apologize, you know, but they do this. And I loved it, because for me, I think it's such a humblest experience for you. And after the street, I'm always saying to my dancer, because I'm still working as like a dancer, I think all the dancers should need one of that experience in humbleness, because it's like, yeah, you know, I'm so deep, can you watch me being deep? That's fucking cool. And it's a bit shit, you have nothing to say, I'm sorry. So I'm very drawn to the fact that you can fail, and that you have to really apply yourself in understanding her, wanting it for her, instead of, you know, me here.
But also the audience is very, sometimes they're numb.
Yeah.
You know, they're used to being in the very easy position of just observing and criticizing.
Yeah, it's dark there.
And you have to poke them, you know, to wake them up, because it gets on my nerves, you know. They just, I can't.
It's a quite sedated atmosphere.
Yeah.
It sounded to me like a course in how to re-become an animal. In the very best sense of the word. All the qualities you're talking about to me are animal qualities. Sense of space, sense of relationship, sense of danger, and sense of community, all those things. And it's very funny how often because it's a lot of words, they're good words,
Yeah.
but it's very funny when you start trying to put into language these things, because in fact, you're putting all this language into learning how to be an animal, not need language.
Yeah.
You know, because
Yeah,
it's a physical language. Yeah, it's an inner language. So that's very interesting. Yeah.
I'm just glad for a point you keep making, and which you made like 3 people ago, which is, you know, how you talked about performers rehearsing with performers only, and I'm just glad for the reminder that the audience's reaction should not be taken for granted. That's it. Yeah.
I was really interested in the analytical, the idea that you could define the centimeters, etc. Whilst at the same time, and public space kicks off in 36, whatever it might be. But then I was also interested in the public space that lives within us, and how that affects those kind of measurements in a way, because we also imagine that space besides the physicality of it and how that interacts all the time. And then I was also thinking about what you were saying in relation to clown, is much that action and reaction is a kind of a classic statement about how clown might work, and the speed at which that actual relationship takes place on the street, you know, to the microsecond of that movement of actually accepting, receiving, and moving closer, accepting, receiving, closer, inviting yourself into a space whilst keeping that kind of generosity going between you, is a kind of very interesting, deep in relation to that. It reminded me, you know, my own practice and how that sometimes, that clown quality is actually very useful for any quality. Yeah.
Cool. Do we need a little break or we go into practical? What you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah?